folks, I hope that you are all having a great day. If you hear a lot of car traffic, it is currently rush hour in my part of Texas. Today I am taking a look at, am I doing this upside down? Nah. Today I'm taking a look at Vaush's Saturn Return. It starts literally in a few days as of this recording, and it lasts until May 2025. I'll have a link in the description below about how Saturn returns work for the people that go through them. It depends on what your zodiac sign is. But you can relieve the work, some of the work that you have to do through your Saturn return if you work on it in advance. And I'm always hoping that someone works on their Saturn return stuff in advance of their Saturn return. Basically, this is an era where, astrologically speaking, you are forced to grow up as an individual. Around 27, I believe somewhere in the 60s, and even in like later on in your life, if you're old enough to go through another Saturn return, I think it's like 50s even. I'll have to double check my sources. But you can go through as many as 3 Saturn returns in your lifetime. And each one is designed to get you ready for the next phase of your life. And this is something that Vaush is about to go through. His Saturn return is in Pisces, which is about intuition. That's about communication. It's also about boundaries and how sometimes those might be a little bit more permeable than they should be. I do get the feeling, and we'll get into the actual shuffle and laying out in just a second. I get the feeling that Vaush is the kind of person to welcome people into his life who aren't necessarily good for him. It's like he believes the best of people who don't always, who aren't always acting in good faith. They are often acting out of ego and self-protection, self-medication, and not self-help, if that makes any sense. Nose is itching. It's time to shuffle a little bit more, and around here we shuffle until Spirit tells me to stop. We are laying out all the cards today. This is a grand tableau that looks at how Vaush can have the best possible Saturn return. Okay, folks, let's take a look at his heart of the matter, which is these 4 cards right here. Right away, I can see that during have the best possible Saturn return, he needs to make a choice that is going to absolutely shake things up when it comes to how he handles things. This is about a little bit of naivete when it comes to, that, if you didn't see that, that is birds. That is drama, if you will. I'm like, he's going to have to change how he operates when it comes to drama in the community. And there's plenty of it in like the political commentary community. There's plenty of it because a lot of those people are there partly because of their egos. And like, that's kind of like a problem I've noticed with like just in general, like people have an issue with like the cult of personality. And I think that like a lot of the talking heads, the political talking heads, I should say, around YouTube can have an issue with that. Okay. So I'm going to also talk about how what he wants is going to be isolative. And I can also see that it's kind of a good thing for him to kind of isolate during the Saturn return. And actually, since it's not, and I don't mean like full-on isolation, but definitely getting rid of the people who don't serve him anymore, like relationships that are obsolete, connections that might be doing more harm than good. I keep hearing Destiny, and I don't know if he's officially connected to Destiny anymore, But if he is, there's something that he's going to have to disavow. He's going to have to separate himself from. He's going to have to isolate himself to kind of build up his own identity, because I still feel like he's still thought of as like a political descendant of destiny. And that's not where Vaush should be by the time this Saturn return is over. I'm looking at his cards of fate, and Spirit is saying, let's move on to something a little bit later. I think it's interesting. My attention's being drawn over to a perfect 9-card spread where Vaush is at the center. This is a route of destruction, and this is a warning for the future if he is to have the best possible Saturn return. When I see destruction, especially with difficulties with lies, I'm suspecting with the drama that there's something that he believes about someone important in his life. They could be feminine. They could be a masculine individual who might be expressing some feminine characteristics, but either way, this is something that he believes about someone in his life who is important to him, and those lies are going to have to be shattered. Again, isolating and searching out the truth about the matter is going to be really helpful here, because it could turn around to bite him in the ass when it comes to love. And this doesn't necessarily have to be about romantic love. I know that he's polyamorous. I don't know if there's somebody in his circle that it feels like he's a bit of a like people's minds turn him on quite a bit, and it feels like he's the kind of person, allegedly for entertainment purposes only, okay, take this with a grain of salt, it feels like he could be the kind of person to be turned on by someone's mind if they have a really awesome conversation. I'm wondering if there isn't someone here who's a really good talker who tells lies, and that's something that really bites him in the ass if he kind of goes to the Saturn return unaware that he needs to be weeding people out of his life who are going to be that kind of destructive. This is a difficult choice that he's going to have to make. This might be towards not the tail end of his Saturn return, but in like the last leg of his Saturn return, like in like the last 6-9 months or so, he's going to have to make kind of an awful choice. I'm going to say like a year, or even like 6 months to a year. Towards the end of his Saturn return, he's going to have to make a really, really awful choice. And the question is, will he? I wonder if he won't struggle with this, because I see that being isolated is going to be really, really difficult for him. He wants to be public. That is literally a round garden. He likes to be surrounded by people because he's kind of a social butterfly. And like, folks, even if he wasn't a social commentator, he would have been that guy who would have been the life of the party. He would have had the block parties, the barbecue parties. He would have been the one who always had people over at his house, right? He would have been with somebody in his life who would have been just as gregarious. His kids would have been just as gregarious, right? He was always going to be like someone who's surrounded by people, and this is going to be hard. This could be someone who is like one of the last people in his social circle that he trusts, and it's just rough to let go of this person. He might be tempted not to. And I can possibly feel out with Pisces that that's like the real challenge, is working with boundaries. So this is quite possibly a public figure. I'm seeing like a contract, like a public contract, as in something that she has with, so let's just say they have, okay, they are a very dominant individual, possibly on the abusive side. Did I look at his? Destructive. He's in a destructive position with this particular individual, because it looks like they are on the abusive side. They could be a social media influencer, and again, this is going to be more towards the end. I'm going to say like 2024 to like late 2020, like mid to late 2024. This might become a thing. I don't know how public facing she will be, but she will have a rate of public influence either way, either because she's with Vaush or because she has something on her own, right? She might have her own gig, she might not. This is a sexual kind of conflict. Also, conflict in establishing himself. Because Saturn returns are about you getting established for the rest of your adult life, I can see how there would be a lot of conflict when it comes to maybe the more childlike aspects that Vaush continues to enjoy to this day. There might be some exposure on whatever's going on here. If there are any sexual issues going on, that's going to be exposed during this time. He may have made some naive choices when he was having a lot of fun with a lot of different people, right? There may have been some choices in the past that are going to come back around to haunt him. I'm looking at this particular diagonal right over here. Like, there are text messages about this. There will be text messages coming out about this. Like, my goodness, I hope that, again, that's about the deception. It's like chickens are coming home to roost. This is what he wants. Like, there's something about this text that he wants, or these messages that he wants. I wonder if he's going to struggle to establish himself in the future after his Saturn return. That's not a sexual lily up here. This could be if it's a red lily, intuitively speaking, if it's a red lily, it's sexual. If it's a white lily, it's about establishment. And it can be both at the same time if Spirit says that that's what's going on here. These could be because of the sexual scandal that's going on right here. That would kind of track. There's some, and it may not be anything actually scandalous, but the community kind of blows it out of proportion. And if you've been paying attention to some of the readings that I've been doing in the past, something on YouTube and something like, generally speaking, on YouTube and on YouTube, politically and on YouTube, something's blowing up. And I wonder if Vaush isn't going to be caught up in part of this. Also, Pluto is coming into... You're wrong. Aquarius. Pluto is coming through Aquarius in 2024. That is also probably going to throw some spokes into his wheels. That's all about really, really incredibly revolutionary stuff. Please do a little bit of research into the Pluto in Aquarius transit coming up, not just next month, but in 2024 and for the next 20 years after 2024. So literally for a long ass time, we're going to be in a really revolutionary transit, and I suspect that Vaush is going to be a part of that. And I wonder if he isn't going to struggle to establish himself, possibly because rules around like sex have changed, rapidly changed in the past few years. And it could be that something in the past that happened has, comes up in the future to kind of bite him in the ass. I see news traveling around really quickly. And it's going to... These are like undercover channels. These are people who pass it along really, really quickly because they kind of already have something out for Vaush. They're going to circulate lies specifically. There will be some grains of truth in these particular texts that are coming up. However, a lot of them, as you can see, are lies, and they're going to really, really cut at Vaush, and that might be when Vaush just kind of pulls the plug on his public presence and calls it a day. Maybe not entirely a plug, entirely leaving the internet, but I wonder if he doesn't leave his political commentator and perspective, if he doesn't close that part of his life altogether after Saturn return is done. I'm seeing a lot of pressure coming his way, that's for sure. Leading up to all this stuff is going to be just as important. There's something about a love relationship. It was kind of a surfacey love relationship, so kind of a friends with benefits kind of thing, if you will. And here's the moon once again. So this is stuff that he interacts with on a regular basis. This is highly emotional stuff. And it could be kind of a friends with benefits kind of situation, but he still gets his heart wrapped up into this. And that might be a little bit of what you see going on in the future. There might be a bit of that whole jilted lover kind of thing. Old flame wants to get things started again, but maybe Vaush isn't so interested. And so that's where the lies come from. This particular person has some influence, and I'm also noticing that she is in the same row as this particular heart. I'm wondering if she doesn't wait to strike at a particular point. And I'm seeing with her particular diagonal that she is a dramatic kind of individual to begin with. This isn't shoe on head, is it? For some reason, her name came to mind. It may not be her, but she might be part of this shit show. She might be part of might be one of the people that really launch into him. I tried to cover for him. I tried to say it's going to be okay. And I don't know, I'm wondering if she isn't going to take advantage of the situation to just get more clout, right? But she's someone who just does things blindly. She doesn't know why she kicks up drama. She just knows that it feels good. She's a destructive individual. It feels good to be destructive for her. Yeah. And she knows exactly what to say to cause a tremendous amount of harm. So whatever happened with Vaush, obviously it could be that there was just some flat out BDSM. Something I heard a lot when I was more regularly in contact with the LGBT community here in Dallas. There were those two communities, LGBT and BDSM, they kind of flow together really easily. And something I would hear quite a bit is that if a relationship kind of didn't end the way somebody wanted, and that somebody happened to be quite childish and immature and vengeful, then they would lie about that partner and would spread all kinds of lies about them in the BDSM and the LGBT community, right? So that was something that I heard about, and I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't happen to Vaush. Someone might misconstrue some things that were done in a sexual BDSM kind of context, and he's just not aware of what a destructive path he is on by associating these kinds of people. Please don't misunderstand. BDSM with consenting, good, mature people who value the soul, value the relationship, value you as a person, those are beautiful relationships. Let me just get that out there right away. But I wonder if Vaush had to go through some shitty relationships in order to realize what a good relationship was. And I'm wondering if some of those shitty relationships aren't going to come out in the future and try to do a lot of damage. And I wonder if they won't succeed to a certain degree. He's going to have to fall back after this particular point. It's going to be a heavy burden. I see that this is a burden that he carries. This is the past leading in, you could say currently. This is something that he struggles to let go of. I see. Whatever was done, whatever was said, it looks like some news, he's tried to cover up some news, if you will, related to this already. It's destructive. The love that he was in was destructive, and it looks like it really ended. It forced him to reconsider something about relationships, at least about this person. I'm looking at this clover. It was a risky effect. Oh, here we come back. This is the BDSM aspect again. So I'm getting a particular content creator. I don't know if it's wise for me to say their name, but I know that they were involved. And this particular involvement was always risky, and I see that rolling into the future. This particular relationship that he was in, they're both in the political sphere. I feel like he got turned on by her mind. and had sex from there. And it was always a risky thing. It was kind of cool to have that kind of mental connection, but it would have been best if it hadn't gone on from there. It was a risky choice. It was more risk than reward. In fact, it wasn't a good one. And I see that running on into his future through his Saturn return. Like this particular person, this woman that he had sex with as friends as benefits, as political allies for a brief amount of time. Like, she is not a good or kind person. She is vengeful. She has her own demons to work out, and it feels like she's choosing to not run away from them, but make friends with them in a bad kind of way. Like, choose to hand them the reins instead of her learning how to bring them under her control. She is in her shadow side completely, and I don't know that she wants to leave it. I think it feels too good for her to destroy. Like, she would like to destroy Vaush. I can see that much. You know, I was looking at his diagonal because it runs alongside hers, and his feels like on the surface it could be more hopeful, at least when we don't look at the house cards, right? The house placements, I should say. It could be that there is some emotional news that he gets from basically social media is how he survives, right? So I'm looking at the Fox. There's going to be some news that he gets. Yeah, social media, it's been growing forever. There's going to be some really emotional news that he gets. It could be, no, I said hopeful just a second ago. It could be that he's getting banned based on these lies, terminated, demonetized even. I don't know what YouTube will be doing in 2024, 2025. It could be that he loses something really important. He's going to be forced to get a job in not social media world because of this. Looking at this education, okay, there are, again, this person has this woman that he hung out with, had sex with, was political allies with for a brief amount of time. She's got some awful secrets. Like, she's been accumulating grains of truth into much, much worse things. They're lies. She's got stuff, she's got a whole catalog of stuff she wants to say about Vaush that are untruths, but he's kind of caught in the crosshairs. It may be that he has been ignoring warnings about this particular woman for a long time and just kind of blitzed past them. And that's kind of like the power of the Saturn return. You go through it. You learn the really difficult lessons about hanging out with people who are extremely destructive to you, put you in a destructive place in your life. And that's where he is, right? He's made a really, really difficult choice to, it looks like, be in the corner of this particular woman, and it absolutely destroys him. And then on the other side of his Saturn return, leading up to his Christ return, how is he going to handle himself? That'll be the interesting thing. Is he going to vibe high? Is he going to vibe low, if you will? There's a lot leading up to this particular situation, but it looks like this might be one of the most important rows right there. We can also read into the row that runs into him because, of course, he's just as important. But it looks like she's kind of like a linchpin to all this action that just kind of blows up in his face. There's something emotional that he's very loyal to, and he's been loyal to this for a long, long time. It's his social connections. Again, they can do awful things, and he'll defend them, and he'll just kind of rub the bridge of his nose and just go on with life. He'll defend them when they don't deserve to be defended. Like, he is an incredibly loyal person, but like he goes after people who don't deserve his affections, basically. And I wonder if that isn't what his personal Saturn return is going to be about, is going after people. He is isolated. Him being so isolated, him being so much on YouTube, so much. Is he on Twitch these days? I just watch the videos that the clips that pop up on YouTube. I don't actively watch him on Twitch. I don't enjoy using Twitch as a platform. The commercials are just, I can't stand how they run that platform. Anyway, I'm not like, I hate to use the phrase, but he absolutely needs to get out in nature. This guy needs to like touch grass, if you want to like put it that way. He needs to get out in nature. He needs a vacation. He needs a real sabbatical. I mean, like 6 months more. A real break. It could be like, ideally, he could take a break from YouTube for a really significant portion of his Saturn return. That may not be great advice. But getting some kind of mental separation, getting into that kind of hermit energy, being able to do some introspection. What have I done in my life so far? Do I like the results? Do I enjoy being around the people that are in my life? That kind of thing. He can at least do that, even if he doesn't completely, totally withdraw from social media. At the same time, being kind of behind closed doors and isolated is kind of what he wants. It might be that might be connected to his autism a little bit. He might be the kind of person to say that going outside might be a little bit a touch of agoraphobic. He might really not like to go outside, and that might be one of the things that makes his Saturn return more difficult on him if he doesn't get out there, and because he really likes to be, once again, with his audience. And being outside, away from them, might feel so wrong that he doesn't think to do it. But it's something that his Saturn return requires. Learning how to be alone and working with your own thoughts and introspection for extended periods of time is something that everybody needs to go through in order for us to get through, those really neat epiphanies, spiritual or otherwise. So I'm actually going to pause here. You know what? Something just drew my attention. I said pause, and then I looked at this diagonal right here. You know what? We didn't look at the cards of fate. What am I doing? So actually, let me go get some oracle cards, and I'll be right back. Okay. So I'm looking at this particular woman. She has a number of sexual difficulties, I see. She doesn't want people to know anything about. This is her past. Vaush is too good of a person because he knows what she doesn't want people to know, and she knows that he isn't going to talk about this stuff because he's too honorable. He's going to wait for her to talk about those things on her own time. If she ever does. I feel like there's quite a bit of pride wrapped up into this, because based on the coffin, she really doesn't want people to know about this. But she's going to be firing the weapon, so to speak. He isn't. Oh my God. She's destructive as hell, dude. You could say that this is an ex, quite literally, of his. Yeah. Interesting. So he might have been the dominant partner, and there might be some things that he did that she can use to blow up. Because again, there will be some grains of truth in there, but how big they actually are, how many grains of truth there are in there actually, we might not know. Because I feel like she's a pretty good liar, unfortunately. There's a lot of money associated with this. She could probably have quite a bit of clout as a result of talking about, Vaush. The political climate might be such that they want to make her one of the good ones, so to speak, because she is speaking out against Vaush, because Vaush might be saying some things that those other people might not want out there. I see that eventually the truth is going to be exposed. Sun is bookending the clouds, which is about, to me, burning the sun, the truth burning away lies or any kind of confusion. And I note that clouds is in the same area. So quite literally, all this kind of drama, the cards of fate, I feel like Vaush is going to be avenged tenfold for the lies that this particular woman is telling. Now, this is the future where it stops, but I feel like this runs into past that future because the universe and the karmic dynamic notice these things, and things will be evened out one way or another. I see things being like lies being burned away, and I see cycles possibly kind of sticking around. Now, what kinds of cycles? Okay, so yeah, money is always going to be an issue with these kinds of problems. So that's never going to be an issue. That's always going to be an issue in Vaush's life. But I'm also seeing how this is going to be really influential for him in the future. There's a possibility of a redemption arc because someone says, wait a second, whatever this person said, this is a lie. This is what she's hiding. There's a lot more to the story that Vaush isn't talking about, and that's when Vaush might get to tell his own story. This exposing moment is going to be is going to change everything for him. Revolutionary is the word. Going to be key to opening up a new era for him. Absolutely going to influence how he chooses to trust people in the future if he chooses to vibe high. Because again, he is landing on the house of the child, which is about naivete or just not being that grown up yet, not having experienced that much in the world. And this is the sun rising on this. This is going to be an increase in maturity in Vaush. I am praying that he just becomes, like, I hate to say more jaded, but just becomes more aware of how shitty the world works. So, Oracle cards. This is the Intuition Oracle deck. So something that Saturn and Pisces, anyone going through the Saturn and Pisces needs to pay close attention to their intuition. Yeah. Stop giving it the benefit of a doubt. Or I should say, listen to it. Yeah. It might be telling you something really important. Do give it the benefit of a doubt. Is what I should have said. Those who will not hear must feel. Miracles are preceded by inspired action. Those who will not hear must feel. Okay, now I understand. So this is the lesson I was talking about earlier. Vaush may have been warned about this particular woman, that she was kind of destructive, and he went forward with it anyway, back here. And now all the way, years later, it's continuing to bite him in the ass. So he didn't hear warnings, and therefore he might have to go through feeling pain. If he wants to avoid this kind of stuff, once again, follow intuition. What does his guiding spirit, what do his ancestors, what does the universe want for him? I suspect he is an atheist, and he would look at this kind of stuff kind of like bullshit, and I respect that totally. But that doesn't mean that we need to wander blindly into some really, really shitty choices and actions that we've been warned against. Even if we don't believe in deities or the universe or guiding spirits or anything like that, there are still good people in our life. You could say that the universe will still send you opportunities to avoid some really painful pitfalls. And whether you can avoid them, whether you choose to heed the warnings or not, is up to you. And I feel like because he chose not to heed warnings, this is going to be a painful Saturn return for Vaush. I still wish him all the best of luck. I feel like he came in with too good of intentions, and people took advantage of that. Again, it's the naivete. It's just the flat-out inexperience of being around people who have had years of experience being shitty and manipulative. And that's a wrap from me. Y'all take care.